Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the late one. Welcome to the evening. It's a beautiful evening. The 22nd of the 4th, 22nd of April. I'm looking a bit blurry there, I must say. Looking a bit blurry. Maybe it's my glasses. Somebody said yesterday it was my glasses. But either way, I'm good. I'm good. Well, I want to thank you so much for this next evening, where we look at some of the top news of the week with my esteemed guest. It has been a very historic week, if what I should say, a very historic week with the verdict guilty in George Floyd case. I keep saying George Floyd case. It's Derek Chauvin case. The murder of George Floyd. Verdict is guilty. What next for America? And in COVID, they talk about the final India flight before red list travel bans arrive in the UK. The UK has been doing well in regards to COVID, where figures are dropping. Dr. Burton will give us some overview on that. Super League or Super Leave? That's the question. Super League or Super Leave? And of course, it is Stephen Lawrence Day. And last week we touched on Rishi Sunak, who is the Chancellor, and that conversation with David Cameron regarding this failed finance company. And here we are again with Boris Johnson and Dyson. There's so much more in the news, even talking about whether people should go to have their degrees or what, instead of having degrees, going and get some trade. But without further ado, let me just bring in my guest tonight, and we'll take it from there. 1, 2, 3, and there we go. Magic. Awesome. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening.
Good evening, good evening.
Hey. Good to see you.
Good evening. Good evening.
All right. I think I've not had a complaint yet that there's more men than women. I always get it in some respect. And then at the same time, when I get it that there's more men than women, if there's more women, there's always somebody says, where are the men? Where are the men? You know what I mean? And I get it all the while. But nevertheless, Keisha, welcome. How are you doing this week?
I'm doing well. I'm doing great.
Fantastic. Dr. Burton?
I'm all good. So Keisha's having to fly the flag for Keisha and Kima. So that's all good. You can do that, Keisha. I'm sure you can manage that feat.
Of course I can.
Well, actually, Kima is on standby as well. If there's something whereby Keisha needs to get delivered from, Kima is there on the standby. And Anthony Francis, thinking Planet, do it now. What is the latest one?
Yeah, well, I think it's we're all getting out and doing it now, aren't we? I mean, the parks, the roads, the shops, people are getting out and doing it now. They're spending their cash now.
Oh yeah, that's very interesting, because I noticed like the coffee companies. I mean, coffee is just going crazy. David, that coffee shop which I go to a lot. There's a Shell station. The guy said, "Take this app. I'm getting free coffees now, man." David, you need to get on.
Yeah, you have to. This app will give you free coffees for that particular establishment. There's other establishments as well, but also you should support your local chain of coffee growers and sources. So there are local coffee shops that will need help during this particular pandemic too. So please support them.
Definitely. Well, listen, David. Let's just start quickly on COVID, and because we have exhausted. Sounds bad. We have exhausted it over the year, but I noticed a key topic which I saw in regards to India, and I just wanted to use that one as a springboard, and also if you can just give us sort of update briefly on COVID. Not saying we need to rush it, but please.
No, I think we should spend as little time on COVID as possible, because there's lots of things to talk about this evening. But I agree that there's a couple of things we should just touch on. Firstly, it's great that 1 in 5 people have had double the 2 vaccines in this country. Great mark of how we're, and a testament to how we're delivering this particular project. Secondly, in terms of the variants, we know the variants are going to be something that we unfortunately face. The particular variant of interest now is that of origin within India, and so we've today found that the 55 cases that have been found during surge testing. So we know that this is going to be the case. We don't know the particular ramifications of this. What we do know is that the vaccines that we have are safe and effective in protecting the population at large. So, you know, the uptake has been fantastic so far. As I said, 1 in 5 so far have had 2 vaccines. We're getting down to the best, less than 40s now are being invited for vaccinations. So this is all great news. You know, the sombering news that people are still losing their lives, we know that this is going to occur, but the great thing in this regard is those numbers are coming down in nature. Unfortunately, 22 people have lost their lives in the past sort of 24 hours in regards to COVID-19. But, you know, in comparison, not to put not to put a small number on this, but, you know, or not appreciate the people who've lost their lives, but it is small in comparison to those people who, you know, at the peak of the pandemic were losing their lives. So we've got a handle on things. It's going in the right direction. Nothing but positivity from me.
And also for India, as you mentioned, the bit with
India. So India, obviously the cases are big there, but, you know, this is a big population. We have to think about that as well. You know, you're going to have bigger numbers by nature of the fact that it's a bigger population, and obviously everybody's driving to try and get the vaccine. So, you know, once we get on top of the vaccinations, I'm more than hopeful that the cases will come down, and on top of that, the number of people who are unfortunately losing life through COVID-19 will come down as well. Just being mindful that, again, you know, there's going to be a need to try and make sure that the vaccines going forward do assist and help with particular strains that may not be coming to fruition just at the moment in time. We're going to be flexible, but, you know, again, the positivity here is that we are going in the right direction. Countries are getting on top of this, and the other thing is we've been concentrating on vaccines very briefly, but treatments have got to be first and foremost. And you heard Boris Johnson this week come out and say that essentially, you know, the active treatments in order to reduce the burden of the disease, because vaccines will, to a degree, stop people from getting an infection, but it'll be a small proportion of people who will still pick up the infection. And we need to be able to be mindful that if you have the infection, then we need to be able to treat that infection to great effect. So we're more than hopeful that the development in the pipeline of medications to try and help combat this disease. And that's all I'm going to say on the take today.
Fantastic. And Anthony, we are seeing now this opening up, and everybody's out there. I even went to the car wash. Instead of having the car wash guy come by, there's a sense of freedom now, isn't it? But people,
well, yeah. Well, as David has said, you know, now that the success of the vaccine program, and also, you know, given the fact that the UK has followed certain guidelines in terms of the way that the implementation to roll out the vaccine, and also to have the stages whereby people can now come back from lockdown, I think everyone has actually adhered to those things, which is a testament and a credit to all those involved, both the NHS, the government for procurement of the vaccine, etc. So I think now we're seeing the benefits of that, where people now are beginning to go out. They're beginning to obviously stretch their legs, open their wallets, which is obviously what the economy needs. But I think they're getting back to a sense of normality, or at least a type of normality post-lockdown. So I think this is all positive. And if we continue behaving and actually carrying out the right procedures, it will bode well for the UK going forward as a whole.
That's good. And Keisha, have you been going out a lot now?
I have. And I'm loving it. And I hope I don't have to be stuck in this house again for a very, very long time, unnecessarily. I'm a bit cautious, though, still going out. I mean, the other day I went to...
I think Keisha's gone out again. She's been cautious, but she's just gone out. She couldn't wait. She gave her permission to go, and she left.
She's back in somehow. She's back. I don't know
what happened there. I don't get that.
Keisha, you decided to leave us.
I was going to say something very, very important. No, so I went to play football with my son the other day.
Let's pause for a second. Keisha, apparently you went out, but you came in again on another channel. So I'm going to take you out, not take you out. Speak for a second.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to remove you, and then you come back in, because I think you came back on a second channel. Okay. No problem. Just come back in. We're waiting.
I don't know how that happens. Okay.
I know. Okay. That's all right. All right, guys. Listen, Keisha is going to come back in, but this week is also Stephen Lawrence Day. Today's Stephen Lawrence Day. Okay. And, you know, all I want to say really is just to acknowledge this day. And I don't know if you guys have anything to say in regards to Stephen Lawrence Day. Keisha is coming back in. Keisha?
Well, I think the main thing we can say is an acknowledgement to Stephen Lawrence Day. I mean, you know, I think now with the, I think people are perhaps having a bit more appreciation for the efforts of the Lawrence family in keeping the whole Stephen Lawrence situation in the public domain, and in terms of the impact, in terms of the Lawrence report, the institutional racism report that was found to have happened back then, but also just it just really highlights a number of the disparities in the race equality area, whereby Stephen Lawrence, sadly, you know, we remember him for, I think, all the wrong things. I mean, I'm sure that the Lawrence family would rather have their son with them today rather than see him as a symbol of, you know, a situation where we have been told it's institutional racism. So
Yes.
I think it's good that we acknowledge, remember, and also hopefully we can move on in the sense of the UK people in general can see the sacrifices and also can see the disparity in the sort of issues around ethnic minorities, and we can make sure that such a thing never happens again, because nobody wants to be a victim of crime through the situation that the Lawrence family went through. So I think it's good that we remember it, and it's a credit to the Lawrence family for being so steadfast with all their efforts over the last many years.
Yes, yes. And David?
Well, you know, Stephen Lawrence was, I guess, the yesteryear's George Floyd, you know, in terms of making a movement, making an awareness of the unfortunate sort of issues that surround our society. And they still surround our society today. But there's been countless work, particularly from his family, that I think have helped change things for the better in this country, raise awareness in this country. And as Anthony touched on, obviously the family would rather him have, and not just the family, but because of the consequences the world over, I'm sure, would rather him be here today than have that unfortunate circumstance take place. You know, the situation surrounding his loss of life, with the delayed kind of perpetrators being locked up, you know, those sort of things should not happen, and so, you know, we need to be mindful of that. There's still a pursuit of equality, of fairness. I don't think we'll ever get equality and fairness to the manner that we want, because it really relies on people to be able to understand and appreciate that. But you know, we want more of a level playing field, and I think that's the key and essential thing here. And I think we can all fight to do that.
And Keisha, in the last word regarding Stephen Lawrence Day.
Well, the only thing I'd like to say regarding that is, you know, I do have a great appreciation for his mother, you know, who has been or has become a very powerful campaigner, given what she's been through, you know, and keeping her son name, you know, in the limelight. I think that's so important to see how her strength has grown over the years, and in the midst of something that's so negative, that she used that so that, you know, this can never happen again, or wouldn't happen again. And I think that's very, very powerful, and I admire her for that. Yeah.
Well, you know, I remember when I was in this country, I think this happened in 92 or 93?
93. This is 27 years ago, isn't it? So
yeah, because I came to this country in 92, and I was living in South London in Gypsy Hill. And I remember my mother called me, because it was in Jamaica. It was all over the news. And my mother called me and said, "Be careful, I hear you're in South London," you know. So, you know, but anyway, we wish the family well. I mean, they're keeping the light on this matter. And the Macpherson report as well, for some of the lessons that we've learned. But moving on, I want to touch on this next topic. And this is the one which is very profound, and guys, it is George Floyd. Okay, the verdict is guilty. What next for America? But I didn't say the verdict is guilty. What next for America? And why I say that is because many people are saying, and it is a fact, that it is history. This is the first time a police in, I believe, Minnesota has been convicted for killing a black person. David, you said coffee is on the house for you, because you already predicted that he was going to be guilty all the way.
I think so. I mean, it's a somber moment.
Can we clarify exactly why we need to give him coffee? please?
Yeah, so it's a somber moment. You know, I don't take any pride in being right here. I just think, you know, the writing was on the wall. I think with regards to the video, if the video wasn't present, I think there'd be a much more of a difficult choice to be made. Not a choice, because I still think, you know, this for me was obviously murder. But if the video wasn't there, that video is just so graphic that you can't erase that video from your mind once you've seen it. It's impossible. And even if somebody was to describe it to you, you could see it vividly in your mind over and over and over again. I'm not saying that the jury didn't hear the discussions and such from the defense, but I think it would be very difficult to argue against that video. And that video represents the struggle of the man. He was breathing at one point, he was talking to them at one point, and then he wasn't breathing. And I think once you go past that period of time where you can say, well, actually he was struggling, he was putting up a fight. He wasn't, obviously, but the police could articulate that he was struggling. Past that period of time, it's murder. And I don't know how anybody could look at that and say otherwise. So I think for me, it was always going to be that case. There was going to be a massive outcry, an uproar, big uproar, if this had not been the case. And I get it. There's apprehension, there's worry, there's fear, there's anxiety that the justice would not be reached in this particular case. And that's natural for people to have because of the historic issues that have occurred in the United States and farther afield. But at the end of the day, that video, I'm not saying we should applaud social media. I'm not saying we should applaud people taking videos at all. I'm just saying that video had to be the crux of how this guy came to have 3 counts against him, because it was just so graphic. It needed no other kind of discussion, to be quite honest with you. I don't think the prosecution had to do very much, but what they did do very well, very articulately, is say that this wasn't an attack against the police, because it's not an attack against the police. There are bad apples in any particular group or organization. It was basically taking apart a particular individual in the police service, and that's a simple argument. The video's there, the cop's there. This is the problem. This is the issue. It's not an attack against the police. They supported the police doing it, actually. They said there's great police. They had police representatives come in and talk about why it is that this was not the right thing for anybody to follow through. So I take no pleasure in saying that I was right. It wasn't me about being right. I was, take that as you will with the coffee discussion. But to be quite honest with you, I don't know how you could look at this other ways. And it's easy for me to say that now, but I always put the cards on the table. And I think that's just the key. That video was just too graphic, and it just told a tale. It's as simple as that.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, those on Instagram and Facebook, thank you for joining. And those on Facebook and YouTube, please share the video and please share this live as well. Much appreciated. We take your comments into consideration as well. Anthony, your take on the verdict.
Well, yeah, I mean, as David has said, I mean, I wasn't surprised by the guilty verdict at all. I thought it was inevitable. And as David has also pointed out, the main thing that perhaps has secured that guilty verdict in all 3 counts was the video evidence, which was very graphic, very real, and you couldn't get away from the fact that the police officer in question had 9 minutes to take his knee off George Floyd's neck, but he didn't. But going back to your question, what next for America now? I think America now has an opportunity, as they have had many other times before, to use this particular situation to try and bring about change within their policing in terms of the training that's given to their officers, but also to just be more aware of delicate situations that can be handled in a more sensitive manner. In terms of where they go now, in terms of race relations, etc., I think that's a different debate, if I'm really honest, because we have to, I think, separate out bad policing from other socioeconomic issues that may be taking place where crime is involved and the police have to get involved to try and make split-second decisions about what they're doing. But certainly it's an opportunity for the police, for the country to be more aware of what's going on and to maybe act accordingly, and to also, as we've seen when the Black Lives Matter marches took place, and as we've seen with the incident at the White House, the white folk were treated completely different to how black folk were treated. So again, I think now that Mr. Chauvin has been found guilty, it might make police officers in general more aware when they're going into situations and be less heavy-handed, hopefully, in order to make some sort of change within the policing system in America. But I don't think it's gonna change any of the sort of socio-economic or any of the way that people perceive race inequality in America. I think that's a complete different subject altogether.
Keisha.
Right. Well, for me, I thought when looking at the verdict, waiting for the verdict. Obviously, I listened to hear both the prosecution and the defense argument. From the outset, I felt that for the 3 counts, with certainty, I felt that the manslaughter charge, there would have been a conviction on that. Like many others, I doubt the second and the third degree murder charge, simply because that is unprecedented and that has never happened in America before. Police officers have been charged and convicted for manslaughter and other lower offenses in America. And the reason being, and a lot of people were apprehensive about the whole that this particular conviction, that in the second and third degree murder convictions, is because you may recall Rodney King and what had happened to him. He was beaten by 4 LAPD officers, and the outcome of that was, they were 3 was acquitted, and then the jury failed to reach a verdict for the 4th one, and that's where you actually had the spark and the rioting. Or I don't remember, maybe for a whole week. It was completely crazy, and similarly, there was a person. I think there was an older man at the time who actually videoed it from his balcony, so it was actually filmed as well. And even because of the video, the jury saw the video and couldn't bring themselves to convict these police officers. And so that is why this particular case, the Derek Chauvin case, is so unprecedented, because what we saw or have seen for the first time is that the tide has turned for America. It's almost like a new day has dawned for America, that finally, people are coming to the awareness that, listen, police are they're police. Well, they're bad cops in the police force, and they need to be held to account when they use excessive force. And I believe this is a changing of the tide, and I think it sets precedent, and hopefully now going forward we could see a lot more changes within. I'm hoping that there'll be police reform or not only criminal justice reform, but policing in America would actually be reformed from the back of the decision by the jurors.
Okay, well, one of the things that I do note, though, is the consistent work of the attorneys, the lawyers, like Benjamin Crump. They have been just at this, they're just focused, resolute, calling things out as they see. You got the Don to Wright case, which is happening recently. You've got the 13-year-old boy, and then you've got the questionable killing of this 15, 16-year-old lady. I don't know if anyone saw that video of the 15. Now that's a very funny one, isn't it? There's a particular narrative that I'm noticing in America, which one has got to be very careful about, because it's like when it is okay. That particular case, the one with this lady here, the young girl, she was actually about to stab another girl, and the police came on the scene at that time, even though she was the one who called the police. And the police had to make a split decision. I don't know if anybody has gone through it, but Anthony, if you ever look at it, tell me what your thoughts on it, and I'll give my sort of narrative as to what America's got to be careful of at the same time.
Well, yeah. Well, look, I have seen the video. I have seen it in slow-mo, and I have seen it reviewed by a number of commentators on YouTube. And clearly, in that particular video clip, it does show the girl who was shot with a knife about to attack another black girl. And in that particular situation, the police did have a split-second decision to save somebody else's life. And, that's what they're there to do in that particular scenario. And they took the decision to use lethal force, which they did. So this is why I say we have to be careful and actually deal with each case by its merits, and not try and join too many of these things up together, and suddenly, you know, we have this martyrdom for the girl who has been shot by the police, when in fact there's no need for any martyrdom of that particular individual, because she was actually about to carry out a lethal act herself and was actually shot doing so. With regard to George Floyd, again, we don't need to provide martyrdom for George Floyd. The situation with George Floyd was that he had a rogue officer who carried out a violent act and committed murder on him. But it doesn't necessarily mean then that we suddenly turn George Floyd into a saint figure and a martyrdom and suddenly do all this, you know, build him up to be more than needs to be. So I think with all of these cases, they have to be taken on their merits and taken separately to identify the actual specifics of each case, rather than just simply lump them all together. But I think the one thing which is common to them, apart from the 15-year-old boy, is that they all do involve black men. Apart from the one with the two girls, they all involve black individuals. And I think that is also something that we need to try and better in America understand. You know, is it that they don't comply with the requests when the police turn up? If someone says to you, stop, raise your hands, or whatever it is, or in fact, don't be involved in the situation in the first place. So I think there's a number of things that need to be taken into consideration. But yes, I have seen the video. It is disturbing, but I think the police in that particular case made a split-second decision to save somebody else's life, and they, in my opinion, perhaps did the right thing, given that's what their training is.
David or Keisha, did you see the video?
I haven't seen the video. But I certainly, based on what Anthony has said, and obviously I've read a bit on it in an article. I just don't understand why policing has to be so true. Well, police officers have to be so trigger happy. Seriously, if you see an incident, why didn't the police officer, for example, shoot in the air? Why shoot to distract, for example? Why is it you think that having to shoot at the person is better to save one life than actually? I don't understand the logic for that. I personally feel, and back to your point, Anthony, about Martin, this is not so much about making people like George Floyd saints. This is about actually highlighting and reinforcing that the need that there's so many black young men at the age of 20, very young boys, are dying by the hands of police officers. And you need to actually bring that to the fore so people can understand the seriousness of what we're dealing with here. You're not the only one, Anthony, but I'm hearing this several times. Every time, especially when it comes to George Floyd, this idea that because you're talking about him and you're trying to talk about what happened or his case, that you're suddenly trying to make him a saint. This is not it's not the point of making him a saint. It's actually highlighting exactly the cause of his death, and that's all it is.
Yeah, but Keisha, with all due respect, we know the circumstance around the George Floyd killing. We know that Derek Chauvin killed George Floyd. I think we have to differentiate between the number of cases in which police officers in America have shot and killed black youth against number of men that have been shot and killed that have been also white in America. Now, if you know the figures and you can tell me the percentage of police of youths that have been shot and killed in America by police that are black and white, if you know the percentages, please let me know. Yes, we know that there is a high proportion of young black men that get shot in America. But you have to also take in consideration the number of incidents involving crime that involve young black men as well in America, and then also link that to the number of cases that get highlighted in the media. You know, what you can't do is take one particular case in isolation, like George Floyd, and then suddenly say that there is a whole issue of police brutality against black people.
But it's facts.
It
is fact though. Are you denying that? Are you saying that Derek? Are you saying George Floyd is an isolated incident?
Keisha,
Order in the court.
No, but I need to make sure I understand what he's saying.
Let me
give you that George Floyd is an isolated incident.
What I'm saying to you, Keisha, if you know the percentage of the number of white males who have been killed by the police and the number of black males killed by the police in America, let me know.
But I don't know the figure for that. But obviously the reason why we're having this conversation regarding the black boys in particular is because it must be significantly higher, or actually in terms of representation.
Okay, we need some facts here. Let's go to
Let me give you some facts. Let me give you some facts. So,
David,
as you were talking, I've been looking at databases. So, between 2009 and 2012, you are more likely, if you're black, to be shot and killed by a police officer. 2.8 times more likely. But as Anthony said, your white people were more likely to have been, well, not more likely, more higher in numbers to have been killed by the police than black people. So black people were overrepresented. So 52% of white males, sorry, 52% were white and 34% were black. So there's an overrepresentation there. But the point of the matter of fact is, when it comes back to George Floyd and the killing, what the prosecution did very well is highlight the fact that police, on general, are good people who are there to protect society, which is correct, factual. Okay, for me. Okay, just hear me out. There are bad apples in every single element of society. Would you agree with that? Regardless of police, let me finish. Can
I go back to your point about can I go back to you and Anthony's point about this comparison?
Let me finish. So the point I'm trying to make here is, you root out the bad apples. By rooting out the bad apples, you have less instances of these particular acts occurring across the board. As part of that, that's going to affect the number of people who are black, but also white, who are going to be affected by these bad apples. Root them out, stop them from working in the agencies that they're working in, and you will have a fall in the number of people who are being shot by police. I agree with the point that you're making in regards to people being trigger happy. Root them out, or train them such that they're not. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody will be better for training, but you've got to afford the training. You've got to afford the ability for them to be able to communicate. You've got to give them the idea of how you act in a particular situation, and use common sense when it comes to talking to people. Don't be so inflammatory. Not this discussion. I'm talking about when you encounter somebody who's in the police. If you're a police officer, you don't inflame a situation, and to the same extent that led to the death of George Floyd. If you look at the the videos leading up to the death of George Floyd, the guy was sat outside the mart. He was actually, first of all, he's in his car talking to them on a level. Then he sat outside. Then they're trying to shove him into a police car, and as a consequence of that, they put him on the floor and put their knee on his neck. That, for me, transition-wise, doesn't make any particular sense. He didn't come out of the mart running, jumping, screaming with a knife or with a gun. He was calm. So I don't understand how it manifested in the way that it did. And that all this, for me, boils down to is the art of communication. If you can't communicate with somebody, you shouldn't be in a police force. It's as simple as that.
Keisha.
All right, so that's the point I'm trying to make. Yes, the numbers don't lie, but the fact is you root out the bad apples. Just do it.
Let's go back to the numbers, David. I agree with everything you're saying, but let's touch on the numbers again. So you're saying 53% of blacks,
white,
and 43%,
34 black. So 2.8, you're basically 2.8 more times more likely if you are black to have died at the hands of police than you are if you're white. But the point is, there are bad.
So can you repeat that again, please, so we're clear? 2.8. 2.8 more likely,
correct,
to die by the hands of police if you're black,
correct,
than if you're white. So that's my argument. So therefore, as far as
no, it's not.
So that's my so the fact is, and as a matter of fact, I never understand why you have to have this comparison between black and white issue.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying articulate the fact that the police.
But you're the one who got this as comparison between the black and white issue.
Okay, Keisha, say the point you're saying in 30 seconds.
I'm trying to say that I'm interested in black boys, young black boys, whether across the pond or whatever they are, wherever they are, being stop and start, brutally killed by police officers. Now, in terms of the percentage or the proportion that Anthony and David actually is pointing out, as far as I'm concerned, in both countries, America and Britain, for example, the population for black people is way lower anyway. So I don't understand why we actually having to look at statistics and figures and all that. The fact is, black boys in both sides of the pond are actually brutally killed by the hands of police officers, and that to me is troubling. That is troubling to me.
One last point. What I would say is on the reflection of what's happened with George Floyd, it's more, I wouldn't say it's, there may well be elements of martyrdom, but what's come out of this is the Justice on Policing Act from the George Floyd point of view. So this was something that was discussed on the phone with the president, with his family after this ruling came out. And that isn't just looking at racial biases in police force. It's also looking at combating police misconduct and excessive force. That doesn't just happen for black people. It happens for all people. And rooting out the bad apples, as I keep saying, with no reference to New York, I'm just saying bad apples. Big, nobody wants people protecting other people who are not in it to protect people, and that are in it just for their own gain, to highlight whatever it is that they're trying to. You want people to protect you in society. So George Floyd Justice in Policing Act is something that the President of the United States articulated that he wants to move forward as a rite of passage, and that will help all people in that respect.
Before we go on to the next topic, in 2017, I got people who sent me this. 2017. 457 white person got killed by police, black 223. 2018, 399 white, 209 black. 2019, 370 got killed by police, 235 black. In 2020, 457 white persons got killed by police, 241. And Hispanic is below as well, 179, 140, 158, other and other unknown as well. I think one of the key things that I recognize though with America, as rightly what I've heard, is that certain different crimes need to place into perspective, because the same case with the young girl who just died, the media, if you watch the media were all reporting it that right after the George Floyd verdict, police killed a black girl, until somebody started to unpick it and the video started to come out now. He said, whoa, wait a second here. Somebody said, why do they shoot to kill? But there's another video that showed a police tasing a black lady in a car. And the lady actually, after being tased, she shot the police 3 times. She went into the thing and shot the police. So therefore, it's, as Anthony said, it's a split-second thing at that time. All I can say is what Anthony said. How do we deal with this from home? How do we start to deal with the boys and the black community to start to make sure that most of the persons we found out that are somewhat got killed by the police, no justification if they were done illegally, but somehow their background and their home bringing is something questionable?
I'll just say a couple of things. I mean, it's a very complex thing. I'm speaking from the UK perspective where we don't have guns. But there are particular laws that will be in place to try and stop things being undertaken. Don't drink and drive, put a seatbelt on, that sort of thing. Those things have saved lives countlessly. And I think that you've got to have, for me, and I'm not American, and so I don't live by the gun, but you've got to put the gun down and you've got to have some gun reform. There's got to be a recalculation of efforts to try and figure out what is really important to society. And for me, yes, it is important to train and teach people at home. Yes, it is important to educate your loved ones about the rights and wrongs of this world. Quite obviously, that's the case. But societal change is going to take a heck of a lot longer to enforce what you're talking about there than it will by withdrawing a gun, which you could say arguably is going to be societal change in itself. But to be quite honest with you, the guns, for me, are the root cause of, not guns, people's use of guns within a particular society. And to change the people's mindset in that regard, I think is very difficult. Yeah. But, it's the guns on the street that are really causing the issue. For me, yes, the police and the use of guns, they use it, but if the society has the guns at large, then the point that you made there with the taser and the shot, that's going to happen. And that's the difficulty here. I think to try and change the society, especially in the United States, of how you have better gun control. Neighboring up over the north border in Canada, I would put it to you that the rates of gun crime are probably not as high. So it's a mindset. It definitely is, but gun control needs to be the first and foremost thing, I think, for any president's moment in time.
Okay, Anthony, and wrapping up on this one.
Well, no, I think I've made my point clear on this one. I think it's a delicate subject. As David has said, countries that have the use of guns as part of their armory, to change that is going to be a very difficult thing, and I think that's another subject in itself in terms of possible solutions around that.
Okay, well, fantastic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, the great news is that the George Floyd has got justice, and one of the key things what I like is this, and this was a fantastic moment which you saw, and here it is. Okay, so that was Benjamin Crump. Benjamin Crump with the team, Al Sharpton and everyone. So kudos there, and we just encourage them to keep fighting. I'm supposed to get one of his team members to come on the show eventually. Climate change. Joe Biden is onto climate change, man. Donald Trump must be seething, going crazy. Anthony, climate change. Why is this a big one? Greta is back on this. Greta is back.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, Greta, aside from Greta, climate change has been a very important topic for many years, but it just hasn't taken the traction. And I think the recent death of a young girl in southeast London recently, where she was registered to have died from pollution caused by pollutants in the air, I think that has given a lot of gravity to people now being more aware of fossil fuels and the dangers of people who have people like myself who are asthmatic, who suffer from bad pollution. So I think not just the effects on the individuals, but the effects on the climate, and in terms of just how the seasons are changing and the impact on us and on our world. I think this is something that should be taken seriously a long time ago. Sadly, I think what's happened is you've got some of the countries like the US and China who don't want to sacrifice their gas guzzling economies for the sake of climate. But unfortunately, they're going to have to come to terms with the fact that they're going to see the sea change what's taking place. They're going to have to recognize the importance of trying to alleviate climate control. And I hope going forward that the up and coming seminar or in the UK is going to really try and bring about some sort of solutions and some actions that all of the countries around the world can sign up to. Because if they don't, then it won't just be people like that young girl who suffered and died recently through having effects of pollution in the air. It will be many of us who will be impacted, and many of our children's children. So I think it's something that we ought to take very seriously and address.
But why did Extinction Rebellion went and destroy some properties in Canary Wharf today? I mean, that is crazy. I mean,
that was a stupid thing to do. I mean, Extinction Rebellion, their methods to go about generating awareness is quite frankly laughable. I mean, going around and smashing a load of windows up means that they're going to have trucks coming along to go and replace those buildings now with new glass. They're going to have all the other bits that go with it. There's no thought gone into that. That was just a publicity stunt that I think has gone badly wrong. So for me, Extinction Rebellion are a complete waste of time in terms of coming up with efforts like that. If they want to be part of the debate, come forward with solutions, not going around to organisations like HSBC and smashing up their window. What are they going to do? Are they going to go to British Airways, smash all their windows up? Are they going to go around to all the people who drive cars, smash all their windows up? They need to get a brain and actually come up with solutions and join the debate rather than just being people who go around vandalising people's property.
Yeah. Keisha, what's your take on climate change? I mean, since it's back on the agenda, it's back on the agenda since Biden came in, isn't it? Because Trump wasn't interested in that period, isn't it?
Yeah. So again, it has been on the back burner for some time, thanks to Trump. But I'm pleased to hear that it's actually back on the agenda again. So yeah, nothing else to add to that really, but I'm just pleased that it's actually a conversation that we're now having.
Okay, David.
And so today is a multiple day. It's Stephen Lawrence Day, but it's also Earth Day. So to be celebrated the fact that we're all born on this green earth, and we should look after it. I'll take the point here that I think this represents opportunity. Let's just take off whether or not you're green or not, whether you're for the environment or against it. We're at a particular juncture whereby people will be looking for jobs. People will be looking for a source of employment. People will be looking for ways to develop their skill set. And this is a fantastic opportunity for people to delve into an expanding area which will need to be recognized the world over. And I think, with respect to the UK, we've been a economy that has relied on services up to now. Those services now particularly could be undertaken anywhere in the world with people working from home. So, if you are able to get into this particular arena, I think you should entertain the idea and also look to see what areas you could get into in terms of a job and so forth. So even if it's not a job, it's science, it's developing a skill set. And so the UK has an opportunity to jump on board this. I think it should launch itself into it and be a leader for it across the globe, because it will be needed in time to come. And the time is now, actually, because of the pandemic. So I think the opportunity is there. I think if Boris Johnson is listening and Rishi Sunak is listening, which I'm sure they do on a Thursday night, then I think launch into it and get people involved and invest in it, because no time is better than the present. I think I'm definitely going to be going much more green. I'm seriously considering getting an electronic car as a next car. I don't have a car at the moment, but I walk to work. But if I'm investing in the next car, it will be a green car, and also investing in something like solar power as well, because I think that, again, that will help not only the planet, but it also help your back pocket, because you'll save money going down the line too. So go green.
Anthony, do you feel guilty with what David said about the cars?
It's been a really good day today. I've done a lot of walking. The sunshine's been fantastic, and thank you for pointing that out.
There you go. Your carbon footprint's down. As long as you're laying your feet down, touch the ground, your carbon footprint is down.
I think that the one thing I can say to that, Selwyn, is that I didn't drive my car today. It's been on the drive all day. And so, I haven't added to any of the climate issues today, thankfully.
Well, Anthony, we are neighbors, and likewise, I've not driven my car today, and the LTN is around this place, which is just giving us a hard time with tickets, so we are working towards that, David. We are championing the cause.
I wasn't calling any names, by the way. You say you did that, Silver. You put people out there, you reap what you sow, you should be throwing stones in glass houses. And you shouldn't be throwing stones at glass at all from today's events as well.
Well, everybody, let me see. Well, listen, let's go on quickly now to Super League or Super League. We want to take on that football. I believe, listen, Super League is great because even Jesus had a Super League, 12 disciples, you know what I mean? And,
oh gosh. Okay, well, I'll do a quick 60 seconds on this one, and then maybe David, you can jump on. I mean, listen, I think what we have to remember, and this is what I think a few people have forgotten. Back in the day when we were slightly younger, Selborne, certainly when I'm a bit older than you, we had League 1, League 2, League 3, and League 4. What then happened in, I think it was 95, was that the top 12 clubs, I think, got together and said, you know what, we can make more money if we have a league called the Premier League that allows us to all play, and then move into the sort of Champions League area. So all that's happened here, I believe, is a continuation of the football being developed, the business people who are coming in and are seeing more opportunities to make more money from the commercial side of football. So I think that, yes, I think the way that it was gone about was wrong. But I think maybe in the coming years, it might be something that gets revisited simply because of the commercial aspects of it. But people should not forget that this was how the Premier League got started back in 95 by all of those clubs breaking away from League 1, League 2, and League 3 and League 4. David,
were you a part of that?
I wish I was part of the football league. I would love to play football and then become a doctor, but obviously doctordom took precedent. In all seriousness, I think in regards to the European Super League, or the European Sustainability League, as I like to call it, it was really there to make sure that the Big 12 were able to continue to conduct their business in the manner of big football transfers and make sure that they could account for the players that they've got on the books. I've said for the past few years now, if not longer, that the gross football fees that have been paid for players is just not sustainable for football across the board. And what COVID-19 has done eloquently is shone lights on different parts of society and different health topics that we talked about on the show, but also with football, it's shown you that, you know, if you don't have the fans in the stadium, the commercial rights go down, people aren't buying the shirts, people aren't turning up and buying the pints in the pubs, and et cetera, et cetera. It causes big problems. And the problem for these clubs is that historically, for example, the Real Madrids and the Barcelonas would be buying franchise players for 120 odd million a year and then showing them and supporting them in front of the fans. They can't do that anymore. They just don't have the financial power to do that, and they're struggling financially. You look at the data that's there. They've lost millions. I think reported, I want to say around 100 million for Real Madrid and Barcelona, Manchester United. All of the top 12 have lost money, and so you know, this was really an European Sustainability League to try and keep them fighting fit. But they didn't consult the fans. They didn't consult anybody. They just went about it and brought about it. I think it was close to midnight on one night that they brought this out, this news. You know, no football support, not in front of football supporters or even anybody could quiz them.
And Jose was sat the day before.
Jose was sat the next day, the day. No, the day after. The day after. I think it was the day after. Yeah, it looks like, I don't know what. I'm not a Tottenham fan, so I can't really say I'm an Arsenal fan. But the fact is that this whole thing did not make any sense whatsoever in regards to the way that it was put out to the public, to Joe Public. And Joe Public responded, especially in the UK and England, with lots of disdain. Football, before we even understood the plans, and we still don't completely understand them, football pundits up and down the country motivated people to get out and vote with their feet and vote with their voices on social media. So this whole plan, I agree with Anthony. This is a next step up from people wanting to cut out the middleman, cut out the UEFA, cut out FA, cut out, you know, the powers that be in terms of getting money for the clubs. Do I think it's going to happen? Not now. Do I think it will happen in years to come? Probably, a particular manner. But we've got to realize here that the way that it was put out, without the relegation as well, which is inherently part of football in the UK, doesn't make any particular sense to me. So yeah, the ESL non-starter may well take precedent in years to come, but it's the American format of it as an NFL doesn't make any particular sense.
David, no, I'm laughing. Are you a doctor?
Go on.
Are you a doctor? I mean, you're just like a pundit, man.
Listen, I love football. I love football. I hate the politics that comes behind it. I don't particularly like politics as a grand thing, but it's the way that it came out, the way that it came across. You know, football is for everyone, inclusive. It's not a poor man's sport. I wouldn't say it's a rich man's sport. I think it's inclusive of everybody. You just get a ball and you kick it. Simple as that. Including Keisha. Keisha can play football. Everybody can play football. You know, we've got women's football that's doing really well at the moment in time. The timing sucked. It was really bad. I have to say that. I'm not a person who normally articulates in this manner, but the football was bad.
Let's hear Keisha's. Keisha, your take as a football.
Well, David, sorry to let you know, but I am not really a football fan, other than when my 6-year-old is actually playing football. So he's
you love your son who plays football. Boom. See, everybody loves football.
So it's either. So I think he's destined to either be a football star or a doctor, just like yourself. One of them can condition him to either choice. But what intrigued me, just one quick point on what I've observed, is the number of people who condemn the Super League forming. You know, Boris Johnson, the Prince William, and it just makes me wonder that, you know, when people come together and have a unique and, you know, this oneness to actually make significant change or do something different, that things can actually happen in this country. And therefore, I'm now hopeful, given that, you know, people could come together collectively and change things, that perhaps, you know, they could kick out racism, for example, in football. Because I am just surprised by such a short space of time, so many people come together and making such difference. So
that's a very good point.
There's hope.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point.
Ian writes that today.
Yes.
Oh, he did? Okay. Oh.
That's the next point that Keisha made. And it's sad that we don't have that we don't have the momentum, like what happened with the football, why people come together collectively to address something which has been ongoing for years and years, and that could be stamped out, not overnight, but certainly with the will of everyone coming together like they did with the football. And the thing we have to remember as well, which I don't think people are perhaps taking into consideration, or at least they tend to forget, is these football players in the Premier League in particular, in the Manchester United, the Manchester Cities, and those sort of big six, you have players on 100,000, 200,000, £300,000 a week. So let's not cry for the footballers, but certainly let's rejoice in terms of people coming together to address something when they feel there's an injustice. And if they could do that for racism, we would have this thing licked in no time.
That's a very good point, Anthony, because Marcus Rashford, by himself again, that sort of piloted the whole thing with food, and you see how that movement got kicked off in a way to make that change. So therefore, I think we're seeing something that when there's a will, when there's a resolve and there's a will, things can be done in this country. And Boris Johnson has shown us that when he puts his foot down, they can make it happen. Let's hope that they're watching. Rishi, let's say it quick before Rishi shuts us down. All right. In final, before I close, there's something which we touched on last week, and it was Boris. It wasn't Boris Johnson. It was David Cameron and this lobbying thing. But Boris Johnson got caught with Dyson now. There have been some conversation. What's going on there, Anthony? You're the man that tells the truth. Tell us.
Well, I said last week that, it's no surprise. And the reason why the inquiry that Boris Johnson set up, which was going to go nowhere fast into the long grass, was because obviously he knew that he was also part of the problem. And what we've seen with these Dyson and Boris Johnson text message exchange is, quite frankly, almost it beggars belief when you look at the messages that Boris Johnson is saying to Dyson, that he will change tax laws to benefit his workers. He will do this, he will do that. He even makes the point in one of the text messages that he's the Lord of the Lord Duchy and he can do what he wants. It's almost like saying, well, look at me, I'm Mr. Big, I can make it happen. It was almost that sense of privilege. And let's face it, if it was me or you ringing up and saying, hey, by the way, Boris, we got a situation down here, like I did with my petition that's got 100,000 people who signed the petition for an NHS and key workers day. I didn't see Boris jumping in the back of that and saying, I'm the Lord Duchy, I can make it happen, right? But it's amazing how he can do that for his mates and also with all the other things that we're now seeing. So to me, no surprise. I suspect that most of his cabinet members have got their nose and their hands in the trough. And I think you'll see a lot more of it in the coming weeks when all of these things come out to play.
David, last word, and Keisha, last word.
Sticky wicket. That's what I'd say. He found himself in a sticky wicket, and he got bold.
Got bold. You're really into the sports, man. We're gonna have to make you a pundit.
That's why I'm wearing the headset. You don't see I've got the headset and I've got the microphone. Now that COVID is moving on, your relevance is not shifted. Gonna make it a sports channel anchor. There you go. I'll be a sports anchor. I don't mind doing that.
Keisha.
Sometimes we have to.
Boris is your mate, isn't it? You have pictures with him. I have pictures of you and Boris.
I have pictures with him thanks to you and Kim and my sister, conservative people. You should actually have an answer to this.
Glass houses and stones, Silver.
Exactly. As far as I'm concerned, sometimes you have to wonder whether when you get in a position of power that you suddenly abuse that power because you can, and I think there's something salty and unethical about what we see here, and it's not really good demonstration of leadership, I'm afraid. It is getting from bad to worse, because last week I thought that was, virgin unethical, but this week is definitely unethical, and I just don't know. I frankly give up with this government, right? So I think it's over to you, Silbon and Kima, to try to give us an explanation as to why the Conservative Party is going down this dark route.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I plead the fifth.
I will ask one question. Do you think a sir should be allowed to ask that kind of question of government?
A sir?
So somebody who's been knighted should be asking that kind of question of government.
Yes, Anthony can.
That's a good way to leave it, I think.
Thank you, someone. Thank you.
No. We leave that one there. Let this one land. And we run out of time. I can't even respond to that because we run out of time. And Anthony has got to get his coffee, hot chocolate. Correction, hot chocolate. And he wants to watch what do you call it? Ready, Steady, Eat or Ready, Steady, Cook?
Next, move on.
Move on. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining tonight. With a very good show, covered a lot of topics, and with the same brilliance of spirit and energy from everyone. I want to thank so much Jordan Murray from Jamaica, Jordan Berry, for actually sending me those information regarding the amount of people who got shot to death by police in the States. So thanks for that and supporting.
Can you text that to me, please?
I will definitely send it to you as well. And for Roger and everybody, Colette as well, I'd said, why do they shoot to kill? And that's a question that we don't know. I think it is something in there. America is a cowboy state. It's a cowboy
Trigger happy, that's all it is.
Trigger happy. That at the end of the day, if anyone try to take away the gun, Texas alone can defend themselves against all America.
Really?
So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much. Remember to like and subscribe to the Silver Show. And remember to also check out Saturday night with Talking Spills. Is Talking Spills? Talking Sip.
Talking Sip.
David, you like it, didn't it? You came on last week.
Yeah, it's a good platform. I like it. So it's an interesting way of looking at different topics. So yeah, Talking Sip. I like it.
Is Anthony able? Should we bring Anthony on it? Or?
I think so. We can. I'm being cheeky here, so forgive me, Anthony. We can sip hot chocolates and coffee.
There's a king that tends to come on the show.
Sorry.
There's a king that appears on the show.
There's a king that appears on the show.
Or something. I forgot his name.
Oh, oh, you
have to address him as King Alex.
Oh, you mean Alex? Yes, Alex King. Yeah, yes, Alex is the king where he says the commoners, and he gets. But somehow he's got a massive following. Right? People loves it. You know. Anyway, that's a wrap. Ladies and gentlemen, have a good night. Thank you so much for joining on the show, and thank you to my guests. And my co-host, Anthony, Keisha, David, and myself. Have a good night, guys.
See you next week.
Peace out.
Bye-bye.
Good. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining tonight. And as usual, we come back next week where we have a very good discussion in regards to the top news and what is up. And as usual, make sure you like and subscribe. I would love that. And get the views up, and we take it from there. So have a good night. God bless you. Peace out. Bye-bye.